So welcome everybody, and thank you all for taking the time out of your day to join us for our live event. My name is Mark Hudson. I'm the CEO here at Squirrel 365, and today I'm joined by my colleague Donald McCormick, our Chief Strategy Officer. We're recording this live event, and it's going to be available later today in an email to you. Please feel free to use the chat panel and introduce yourself, your organisation, and ask any questions that you may have during the next 30 minutes. We'd love to know more about your use of value calculators, how you're using them, how they're helping you maybe position your products and services. Anyway, so let's get started. More and more businesses are using value calculators as sales tools to help their prospects and customers understand the return of investment on their products and services that they deliver. By collaborating with customers using tools, sales teams create more successful business cases that give greater visibility and understanding of the benefits of the solution and the results. And the result is more and higher value sales. Today, we'll focus on how Squirrel 365 can help you design and build these calculators with clicks and not code. Using examples from our customers in the technology and energy sectors, you'll see how Squirrel enables you to easily visualize the value your solutions deliver and empower your customers and account teams to drive a collaborative approach to value-based selling. Now, the proof is always in the pudding, so let's see how you do this. I'm going to hand over now to Donald McCormick. Donald, over to you. The floor's yours.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar, Create ROI Calculators to Engage, Build Stronger Business Cases and Drive More Sales. Now, the interesting thing is that was the title we decided on when we were planning this webinar. So obviously the one you've seen, the one you've come to. But as I was building the content for this webinar, I realized to myself, it's actually not just ROI. Now, ROI, even on their own, ROI calculators would sort of be enough because they add enormous value to the sales process. We'll see some of those in action as we go through. But there are other ways in which very similar technology, or the Squirrel technology, can produce calculators which aren't quite ROI or value calculators, but still add enormous value to the sales process. So the other one is sometimes, and we'll see an example of this later, where it's non-financial benefits that you're calculating. So it's not about the financial benefit, but maybe it's about a non-financial different. And the one we'll look at is CO2 emissions and the whole greenhouse gases thing. Maybe you want to have a pricing calculator. This could either be a pricing calculator for your salespeople to use or for your customer to use to understand how to price your offering. Often it's not just one price, as a way of sort of pulling things together, and so that can often be packaged up much more easily, even self-service for customers or in the hands of your salespeople. And there's also configuration calculators. Often in a more complex sale, part of the process is configuring a system, how much hardware, how much software, if you're doing hardware-software combination, or how many consulting days as opposed to software, or whatever it is. And those configurations can get really very complicated, and packaging them up with a calculator like this that's easy to use, again, can reduce friction in the sales cycle. So we're not really just talking about ROI calculators today. We're talking about the broad spectrum of sales tools and how you can remove friction in your sales process by doing exactly this sort of thing. And these interactive sales tools, there are four key value propositions. The first one is the articulate value. So the ROI calculators, they help customers, or prospects rather, understand what the value you're bringing, and they can play with the scenario that they understand, which is their business, and then let the model articulate to them the value that you're bringing. That process also allows them to deepen their understanding of what you're offering them, which is a great sort of bonus in the sales process, because the deeper the understanding, the more they become connected to the product or the service that you're offering, the more likely it is to have a quicker and probably higher value sale. One key aspect of this, and we'll definitely see this in some of the things that we're talking about, there's some of the examples later on, is that they actually start to foster collaboration. This isn't something that you just throw maybe at a prospect, but sometimes it's something you sit down with them and say, well, let's model your business through this. And it's a structured way of producing this collaboration through the sales process, which again deepens the relationship, leading to quicker and hopefully a higher value sales. And all of this just engages people more. It engages your sales teams with your prospects and fosters sort of, as I say, collaboration, understanding, an understanding of the value. To engage, the whole process becomes more streamlined, more seamless, again, hopefully leading to these sort of quicker, higher value sales. So really, with that background, there are only two things that we need to do on today's agenda. One is to show you what is possible. And the second is to show you how easy it is to do it. Because everything you see today, you could do with an army of developers, but that's not what we're offering. We're offering a way that you can do it yourself and do it, as Mark said, with no code, with point and click and just spreadsheet knowledge. It truly is a remarkable difference in what you can achieve with Squirrel 365 in the area of sales tools without having to involve IT, without having to involve technical people. Just get up, go, and get on with it in sort of, I don't know, hours or days, and certainly not months or weeks. So what we'll look at first is some examples of these things in action. There are two here. The two on the left are ones from our customers. Two on the right are ones that I've created, and we have a couple of other examples which are from our customer base that we'll look at as we go through. So if we come here, all of this is delivered through web technology. As we'll see, you can deliver all of these on the web, embedded in a website with a shared link, or indeed embedded inside PowerPoint. And we'll look at all of those as we go along. But the first ones we're going to look at ones which some of our customers have embedded into their website. And the first one here is Future Metrics. Now, Future Metrics are a consulting organization that help people help power generators understand their carbon footprint, understand how moving to wood pellets in particular can change the dynamics of their industry. And this is the front page of their website. And if you scroll down, what you see is at this section here, they've got these models. Now, as I say, these models aren't so much about ROI. They're more about they're articulating the expertise that Future Metrics have in this market. And so each of these is an interactive model you can click on and open that allows people coming to the website to understand the proposition that Future Metrics offer. So, for example, this one here is the CO2 footprint change that you get if you move from coal to pellets. And it just allows a very simple, and that I haven't seen, but I can imagine that the spreadsheet behind this embodies an enormous amount of expertise from Bill and his team. But what it is here is encapsulated in an easy to use interface where people coming don't have to understand the complexities of it. They just have to understand the inputs that they've got and how that affects the outputs in terms of the this key metric in the middle here, which is what the percentage drop in CO2 emissions are if you move to pellets. And so they can do this themselves. All of these things, if you're in this business, you would understand what all of these are, so you can start to change them and sort of say, well, I'm moving these things here, like maybe how do I go from the mill to the port? Well, I go by truck or I go by rail. And every time you see it, you see what's happening in terms of the breakdown of how the carbon footprint is changing. What's the shipping size? What about from the port to the power plant? Then the fuel mix. So maybe I can sort of say, well, I'm going to go up 6 points in nuclear. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see, this has gone red because these have to add to 100. So I have to bring something else down. So maybe I bring this down by 6 here. That stops going red. So I now know I've got a good solution. And all of this, as I say, is really easy. It's just available on the website. And as we'll see as a theme we go through here, Bill and his team created these not by engaging developers, but by just taking a spreadsheet they already had that encapsulated their knowledge of their industry, and they put this front end on it using Squirrel just by pointing and clicking at the spreadsheet and the components inside Squirrel. It's an amazing use case. Now, that's at one end of the spectrum. That's sort of like out in the sort of the power generation CO2 footprint. The second one here is our partner Infosol in the US. They have a product called InfoBurst, and InfoBurst allows people to derive greater value from their existing business intelligence deployments. And so in order to help people articulate that, it's all about bursting information, taking and getting out to more people. So here, again, end users can, potential customers can come in and change these parameters. So number of, how many dashboards are you using per month? What's the salary of the team that's handling this? How often do you do it? And it starts to generate these savings. You can get details for both InfoBurst Tab, which is one product, and InfoBurst Publish, which is another product. We can see how this happens with a detailed breakdown, or clear that away. And there's a simplified view that you can print out, which gives basically the overview of the ROI case that you can maybe take to someone else, the steering committee that's going to validate this. Again, all very easy and straightforward for the end user to use. They don't have to come into a spreadsheet and type numbers. You can say, well, actually, I'm interested. I wonder how it moves when I do these things. And even that, just that level of interactivity makes it more likely that people will engage with it because it's something out of the ordinary. So a great sort of packaging up of capability here that allows people to come in and just self-service and understanding of the value. And what this may be doing as you go through is that people may be maybe discovering both the value on this side, but also that there is another product here, or a click through to see more. So again, it's not just for articulating the value, it's that deepening of the relationship where you can market to people inside the tool so that they can then go and get more information, maybe discover something completely new about the product that they didn't know before. For example, if you've got more levers on there, people might say, oh, I didn't think about that use of it. Yes, I could use it like that as well. Again, all these things help you to deepen that sort of collaborative approach to the selling process. So those are two that are real world, out actually on the available on the internet. The third one is slightly different. This is one that I created, but it is a real world example. It comes from a Forrester report. So Smartsheet are an online Smartsheet come database tool that's why many hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of users around the world using it to track all sorts of things. And they had a study done, an impact study done by Forrester, which talked about the benefits and of Smartsheet in terms of individual productivity. And I liked it so much as I was actually preparing for a webinar we did with Smartsheet a couple of weeks ago, that I thought I'd build one of these calculators based on that value proposition that Forrester had determined through interviews with the Smartsheet customers. And so again, it's a very similar sort of thing. I'm saying, well, how many collaborators have I got in my organization? Maybe I pull this down because I've only got like 2,500, bring it down to about 2,500. But I'm planning more growth in over the years, so I can pull that up there. The risk factor in the report, and I guess this was because Forrester wants to sort of make sure people don't, you're not always going to get these returns, but maybe I'm more confident, so I'm going to take the risk factor down. It is all these things, how is going to be adopted, the average cost per employee, maybe take that up a little, hours saved per week, and then the percent capture. So if I save 1.4, how many hours are people actually going to reuse? Maybe I'll say they'll probably use 50% of that. And as you see, every time I do that, these numbers change. Again, it's engaging as I move these people because, oh, there's something about it that just draws people in. But if you want the details, they're all here as well. How does this all break down? You can see that some people don't really believe things until they see the numbers, and so you can do both of those. Again, a really nice way of just presenting the productivity benefit, which sums up in this. And maybe I missed a trick here. Maybe there should be a big number up here that says your overall, this is the 3-year risk adjusted present value, which is, so this number would be the key number. You're saving $4.5 million here. So if the cost of the implementation is maybe say $50,000 to $100,000, it's making masses of ROI on this. Now, the interesting thing about this, which wasn't present in the other two but could easily be, is I've got a settings dialog here, which I can do things like changing the color on the sliders and show the numbers or not show the numbers. But the really interesting thing is I can take this scenario. So I've done some moving around. I say, I think this is right. So I can say this is my scenario, and then I save that away. And actually what that's doing is it's saving it back to an underlying Smartsheet, so an online data source. It could be, in this case, because it was Smartsheet, I use Smartsheet. It could be one of many other data sources. So now if you look at what happens, I can move, I've got all these scenarios that have been saved from before, max, likely, and then my scenario there takes me back to where I had. And what you'll see is if I come here and refresh my Smartsheet in the background, you'll see that that's the scenario I just saved. In fact, in case you think that I'm cheating and I had that earlier in there, I can say my very new scenario. Now, if I come, I don't want to, let's capitalize it properly. I can come in here and save that. Now, when that comes back as an option there, my very new scenario there, if I come here and if I'll refresh that, then what we see is my very new scenario. I use the same numbers as my scenario, but you can see that's happening in real time. Now, the real value of that is, well, the obvious value is that customers or prospects can come and save different scenarios and stuff. It's easier for them to use, but you also get insight into what levers people are pulling. So you can see what people are thinking about, which again sort of deepens this understanding that they have of you and you have of them, which can only be good news for the overall sales process. So that writing back of scenarios can be very powerful two-way sort of thing. The second from last one that we'll look at here is a calculator that I created for use internally here at Squirrel. And the reason for that is we are moving some of our server side, our cloud computing capability to use AWS Lambda. And Lambda is a serverless function environment where basically you write functions, you put them up there, and you don't need any hardware allocated to you. They're just run as and when they're required. And we were concerned about the cost of this and how much this was going to cost us. And so what we did is we took the numbers out of the online documentation for AWS and put them into something that we could very quickly and easily better understand what it was. So we can say, well, actually, we're going to go into the. So you can see here, if I go to the different data center, the monthly cost changes. So if I go to London, it's only 92. I can say, well, actually, we're only going to do 1 million requests a month there. So we'll take that to there, and the average duration is going to. See, you see, it's all. I can see what my monthly cost is going to be. Interestingly, with Amazon, if I go down enough, I get to the point where I'm in the I include the free tier. So the free tier is the ability, Amazon offer a free amount, so we can see when is it we're going to, that we breach about 1 million, we breach that, or if the duration goes over half a second. So we can play with these scenarios. Really, that would be really hard to do, to find those scenarios in the online documentation for Amazon. But this brings it to life. Another nice feature is here. I can click on this and see, well, what are the things that I'm supposed to be inputting here, so I can explain, so people don't need to be trained or have documentation to use it. It's all self documenting. And also, I mean, sometimes again, people might want to see the underlying calculations. So there's the way of doing that as well. So a nice example, as I say, is a tool that we use internally. But you could see, if you had a service like this, the value of this going out to your customer. Oh, we got free. Oh, how long can we stay on the free? Oh, that's good. And it might pull people in a way that you hadn't before. So that's one that I say we created internally for us at Squirrel. And the final one we'll look before we start building some of these is one that a customer of ours who are consulting, Manning and McKenna in the US, they have created this for one of their clients. Now, the problem that their client had was they've got a trade-in program for old technology, for new technology, and many possible trade-ins and many possible replacements. And the value of the trade-in discounts depends on what you've got on both sides of those. So their salespeople had this huge amount of sort of possibilities in terms of what's going on with the trade-in and what people are trading in and what they're trading it in for. So they built this tool to help the salespeople, an internal tool to help the salespeople get to grips with this. So I can come in and say, well, it's a disk one, and I'm going to, what sort of thing? I'm going to the cloud storage, and I'm going to have one of these in it. Well, actually, I have 4 of these in it. And we see it starts to say, well, how much you're going to trade in, how much of allowance you've got because of that trade in. Then I can come here and say, what am I going to trade it in for? So again, I can say, it's going to be IBM machine. It's going to be one of these, and there are going to be 3 modules there. And so now they're starting to see the stack. But the really interesting thing is when I click next, it comes up, and sort of, actually, I've chosen a well balanced for one. You can go for it, but let me see if I can edit this and get to one that isn't well balanced. Yeah, see, there you go. That one isn't well balanced. So now it talks about how you might go about optimizing this deal. And so this is, I mean, but this is, there were sort of hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of combinations of these trade-ins. And this helps the salespeople guide themselves and their customers through it. And here is recommending, well, this is quite good, but here you might want to do something different. And how can you get in to optimize this deal? It's an amazing piece of technology that you can instantly see how this is going to help that sales process or that trade-in process to generate more business and more revenue, and happier customers are getting a good deal with this. So those are some examples of what we're talking about. Now, the key thing here, before we go into Squirrel and see how you create these, is there's one thing that connects all of these. And that thing is there was no code written in the production of any of these. They were all created with spreadsheet knowledge. So, I mean, it is quite remarkable. You can get such a broad range of things and a broad range of capability without, on the web, an area where usually if you want any of this, you have to, as I say, get a developer to do JavaScript or web. None of that is required. None. Zero. It is not possible to write code in Squirrel. You have to do it through the spreadsheet. So these are skills that almost all of us already have. That's what makes Squirrel so different. So the next thing and the last thing on the agenda is how easy is it to do this? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start somewhere a little odd perhaps, but bear with me. Here is a a website I found as I was researching for things I might do for this webinar. I came across a website that Michelle here, I have no idea, this is someone in America. I know nothing about the craft and art industry, but what caught my eye is she's got this little calculator down here to help other people say, well, if my cost of my supplies are this and the number of items I make and what happens and what should my and I've got a markup. What's my cost per unit? What's my retail price? What should it be? And I thought this is a great example of an online. I wonder how Michelle on this website produced it. And the answer is, if you dig into it, it's written with JavaScript. So somebody somewhere coded it. I don't know if Michelle is a part-time coder or she contracted out or something. But most of us don't have that capability. So if you wanted to do this and you didn't have that, how would you go about it? Well, that's where Squirrel comes in. So I've got this spreadsheet here where I created, again, very straightforward spreadsheet. It's the craft pricing calculator. You get the cost of supplies. These are the inputs you saw there. And then the cost per unit is just supplies plus the hours and the hourly rate, and the divided by the number of units. The retail price is just that with the uplift. And then the profit per product is just that divided by the number of items. It's really simple, but it serves as a really good example of how you can take something like this. I mean, most Squirrel projects are based on rather more complicated spreadsheets, but this is a great example that we can start to reproduce using Squirrel because it just gives you that insight. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to import that spreadsheet. And so here we go. Here is loading in. And there, it's the same spreadsheet. That was in a second ago, it was in Excel. Now it's in the Squirrel spreadsheet. And what I can do is I can start, in fact, I'm going to make this smaller size so you can see more of it. I'll just make it 800 by 500 to bring it down to there. So now I've got that nice area to work in. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add a title. So this piece of text up here is going to be my title. And I can just type it in, but it's actually easier to bind it. And this is where the magic of Squirrel happens, when I take these components and bind them to the values in the spreadsheet. So I just say, well, I want that value there. I want craft pricing calculator. And hey, presto, it's up there. And then I can style it. I can say, and this is exactly like sort of all your office products. So it's really easy to do all this. There was a mauve theme on the original website, so I'll keep with that. So I've got that there. Now what I might do is I might want to say, well, okay, so I want what's the cost per unit? And I'm going to have that on here. So I'm going to put a piece of text here. In fact, I'm going to put two pieces of text here. And one is going to be the label. So I'm going to bind that to cost per unit. And then this one is actually going to be the cost per unit, which is this here. Now the cost per unit is a currency, so I'll format it as a currency with 2 decimal places. Let's go for the US there, and I can I can make that, and I can make that bigger. So let's go to 30. I maybe make this bold so it stands out, and so you can start to see that I'm sort of creating the maybe align those so they're nicely lined up. There we go there. So I've got that. So I'm now displaying as it did on the other website, the cost per unit. I could do the same for retail price and product per profit. It's exactly the same. I won't bore you by going through that. But then what I can do is I can take a slider, rather like the one that was there, and I can say I am going to bind this into the number of items that I've made, like that. And I say the maximum items I can make is 200. So that slider is going to go from 0 to 200. It's currently 46. Again, I might want to put a little text label in here so people know what it is. And that's going to be the number of items made. And so let me make that here. So now, obviously, the cost per unit will go, because I've got some fixed cost, this cost of supplies, they'll go down as I create more. Actually, I don't want that end thing there because I know there we go, that's better. Because all this logic is in the spreadsheet. So I've wired something up here, and I can come and say, well, what would this look like published on my website? And I can do this, and you can see it automatically updates all of this exactly as it did on the website when you first saw it, but with no code. It's all based on this very simple spreadsheet, pointing and clicking and combining it up. And I've got all the flexibility here. So for example, the track color here, I can make that sort of that mauve color so that we get exactly as we had on the website there. We can change the font size, we can change the fonts. There's all these things we can do. And literally, that's all you would need. Those are all the techniques you would need to create this. In fact, look, rather than boring you by creating another sort of 20 components and binding them up, I have a finished value, a finished example here. So the craft pricing finish. So there I have it there. So this is exactly what was on the website there, all the things you can do. There's nothing, you would need nothing else other than what you've already seen done 5 times here and 3 times there. That's all there is to it. So you could, I mean, sort of no coding skills, no nothing. And imagine you own a website like that, you want to put something like this in it quickly and easily. I mean, this literally took me 10 minutes this morning to create from nothing, based on sort of the sort of an understanding of what the problem was. So once you've done this, I can then say, well, I'm going to go and I need to be able to get this out to people, and that's just as easy, if not easier. I say I'm going to publish this to the cloud, and it's going to be, I'll call it Webinar Crafts. This is the one we're publishing for the webinar. So I publish that up to the cloud. And here I have it here, and I can say I move it to live, so it becomes a live in my catalog, and then I can open it in the browser. So now this link here will take you to this calculator, this craft calculator, and sort of it's available. There's nothing else you need to do to make that available. You send this link to someone, they can get hold of it. But it's not always just a link you want to do that with. There are other ways of sharing. So for example, I can embed it. So if you have got a WordPress site or some other way of doing it, you can get the code here that you would embed. This is a really standard way of embedding this sort of capability into a website. It's supported by just about every web provisioning capability. So you can do it there as well. And also I can get it into PowerPoint. And so if I click, I've copied this this thing here, and if I come back to my PowerPoint, I've got an empty slot in here, which I'm going to just add in, insert a Squirrel 365 thing here. I'm going to put that link I had in there, and hey presto, you now see something which a minute ago was sitting in Squirrel is now sitting in PowerPoint, and it's interactive. So I can do this inside PowerPoint. So if I now go back to my, if I come back to my, this is my view, this is my PowerPoint, and there I have it. I can do all of this as I had, but now it's in PowerPoint. So you want to deliver this in a presentation to a prospect, to a customer, you want to present the ROI case, then all of that's possible from directly inside PowerPoint. And so with just that understanding of a spreadsheet bound to components where you can do this sort of thing is the beauty of Squirrel. There's nothing else really you can do. It's just components in Squirrel bound to logic in the spreadsheet that makes all of these things possible. And before we go, I just wanted to show you sort of like, if you like, the top end of this, if you like, the ultimate value calculator. This is a 1-minute section taken from a webinar interview, which is up on our website if you want to go and see the full 30 minutes, with Ziv Barzili, who's the chap who created this. And he works at Salesforce. So this is, as I said, this really is the ultimate ROI value calculator, because it's a whole application. Now, thing as we go through this, remember that everything inside this browser was created with Squirrel using exactly the techniques that you saw today. There's really nothing more to it than that. And it's quite remarkable because you have a number of capabilities. So for example, these menus, you've got menus and sort of, you can horizontal and vertical menus. You can then have configuration using things like these checkboxes to turn on and off different types of value. You can, once you've done that, you can insert the values into that. There's a nice bit here where for the different things down here that underpin the value proposition in the charts, you can do that. Other controls to select, so you can do these drop downs. This is actually configuring an AWS calculator here inside Ziv's calculator. Sliders, buttons, all of these types of things. And then on top of that, you've got the whole spreadsheet capability. So this is modeling 5 years ROI or maybe 12 years ROI, all based on the logic sitting inside the spreadsheet. Ziv has obviously got his scenario saving because it's a complex model that he, as I say, they sit down with their prospects to do this. So that saves it away. And then finally, he has these amazing dashboards, which are actively used by the prospects in pitching for their business case to the steering committees that are going to validate and authorize these potentially sort of multi-million-dollar deals. And I would encourage you, if you're interested at this end of the spectrum, to come and watch the webinar that we did with Ziv, because some of the stats that he gave about people, the salespeople wanting to use it, the number of deals he's involved with, the value of those deals, all being driven by the calculator, are really truly eye-popping. So an amazing sort of top-end example of this. So we've gone from one end, that's sort of like the craft calculator, through to what Ziv's doing here, all possible with Squirrel, all possible based on just a spreadsheet and nothing else. If any of this has piqued your interest, download a trial at Squirrel365 or get started. Schedule, if you have any questions, schedule a deep dive. The link will be in the replay email that you will get, or reach out, contact us at info@squirrel365.io, or just come to the website, squirrel365.io. We would love to talk to you and help you with your create your sales tools, your interactive sales tools like this from your spreadsheets. Mark.
Donald, thank you so much. That was excellent, and I hope it's inspired many of you to maybe try Squirrel 365 for yourself. And I know Donald was saying he just stumbled across the arts and crafts calculator, but actually it's for its crocheting business on the side, I believe. Anyway, I would like to take this opportunity to thank some of our customers. I'd like to thank Meryl McKenna from Manning & McKenna. I'd like to thank Bill Strauss from Future Metrics, and finally Ziv Basili from Salesforce for their excellent use of Squirrel 365, and whose content has enabled us to do this value calculator webinar today. So from our perspective, thank you so much. Thank you for taking 30 minutes out of your day. The email will be with you very shortly with the replay, and also a link to a deep dive. So it has inspired you, and you'd maybe want 30 minutes or 45 minutes of Donald's time to have a deeper dive into how Squirrel works, how you can get value out of Squirrel. Please click on that, schedule some time, and we'll be right with you. Thanks everyone, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.